Hi, this is Russ McClellan, operating partner and designated broker of Keller Williams Realty, North Central Washington. Hey, thanks for tuning into our show each and every Saturday morning. I wanted to share the fact that we've been in business now about a year and a half. We have over 50 real estate agents, and there's a reason for that. Mainly, it's relationship and culture. You know, sometimes people definitely look at the money and the commissions and the splits, but at the end of the day, it's about relationships, trust, that familial connection that you have at Keller Williams. That's what we strive to do, and that's how we look at our clients. We now have offices in Brewster, Chelan, and Wenatchee. We have agents in Wenatchee and East Wenatchee and Cashmere and Leavenworth, Chelan, Brewster. Really having a good time. So if you're interested in learning about why is Keller Williams Realty growing as fast as we've grown and have as many agents that are focused on their clients as we do, give us a call at 509-888-0038 or just stop by and see us at 1111 North Mission Street right here in Wenatchee. Hi, this is Russ McClellan, operating partner of Keller Williams. I want to thank you for supporting my radio show as we enter our third year of broadcasting. We are going to continue to provide an emphasis this year on real estate education by inviting our affiliate partners to share their knowledge and expertise, as well as discuss current real estate trends and topics with all of us. I'm also excited to introduce our Keller Williams brokers individually so you can get to know them as I do. Sincerely, thank you for supporting Home Sweet Home with Russ McClellan and friends. Call us anytime at 509-888-0038 or stop by our office at 1111 North Mission Street.
You're tuned to Home Sweet Home with Russ McClellan.
Hey, welcome back to Home Sweet Home with Russ McClellan this Saturday morning. Thanks for tuning in. Hey, we're talking appraisers, appraisals, and real estate brokers, and what does all that stuff mean with lending? And, you know, bottom line is people want to buy a house, right? And I'm with Ann Tedeschi with A.T. Appraisal Services. Ann's been around as long as I have, almost, maybe longer. I don't know. 1990, 1989, pretty close. We've been in this crazy industry together.
It's a long time, a lot of changes.
Yeah, we've known each other a long time, and we've. I know she's helped me out in many cases, and I've tried to provide. I always try to provide as much information as I can to appraisers when they ask. It's kind of a funny world right now because we can't be buddy-buddy like we used to be. That was part of the post-recession world. Like, hey, those darn realtors and those appraisers, stay away from each other. Don't talk to each other.
Don't sell yourself short. I rely on realtors all the time. I want to make sure that I'm viewing the market the same way you are. So.
Right, and what we were just talking about in the last segment as we took a break is, hey, my job is if you hire me to get you the most amount of money as a seller as I can, right? So I'm not looking – I mean, I'm going to use market analysis. That's the word we use, broker price opinion or comparative market analysis, CMA, BPO, those acronyms. That's basically what we call it when we do the work similar to an appraisal. It's not nearly as complete, but we do look at, okay, what is sold that is of like kind when we're going to go price a house. We also look, and I look at this more – I mean, maybe everybody's a little different, but I look at it like this way. I know there's a certain amount of buyers that are going to buy a house. And so I look at the competition as a big part of that component. You know, if I have 100 homes that are competing with you, you're going to have to be in the top 2 or 3 of these 100 homes. If I have no homes that are competing with me, like I have a special zoning or I have a special type of property that there's, you know, just nothing available, then you're probably going to be just Econ 101, supply and demand, you're probably going to be able to pull a higher price than you would have because you have very little competition. Well, right now, we're in a very interesting time. We had very low inventory before we got the COVID virus. And in the COVID virus land, what's ended up happening, guys, at the bottom line is, and there's article after article from Forbes to Wall Street Journal every day about companies adopting policies through this virus and then post-virus, if and when that ever happens, that they're allowing people now to work from home, where before they were many people in companies were resistant to that. Now, what does that mean to us locally in North Central Washington? Well, the average Facebook employee, I was told in a meeting a couple of weeks ago on a big conference call with Keller Williams nationwide, the average Facebook employee is making about $240,000 a year as just one example, and that person's about 29. So let me say that again. 29 years old, making $240,000 a year on average. They used to have to live in Seattle, let's say, in order to make that kind of money. But now Facebook, Zillow, Microsoft, Amazon, yoga studios, construction companies, medical workers, you name it, everybody's embracing this concept because they really had no choice when the quarantine hit to stay focused, right? At the end of the day now, they're like, man, you're more efficient. You're not just sitting around eating bonbons and watching whatever you watch. Tiger King back in the day, I think that's over now. But whatever you're supposed to be watching, you're not working. I'm worried about that. And what they're finding is that people are much more efficient. Long-winded way of explaining that there's going to be a lot of buyers coming over the hill from the west side of the mountains, which is unfair economically to the people that live in North Central Washington and work. Teachers, cops. I'm talking professionals, not your part-time workers.
We just don't make the same type of wages, and we can't compete with them on value.
Right. So we had a supply problem of houses before this happened. Now we're seeing an invasion, and that is gobbling up houses on a daily basis. I think last weekend I saw something, it was like 35 homes sold in Wenatchee in 2 days. I'm real concerned, and I'll just put it out here on there. If we're at I don't know exactly what we are, maybe a 60 to 90-day inventory where if we stopped listing another home, we'd sell everything we have in 60 days. It's not very long. I'm concerned that in 100 days, that might be a 60-day inventory, might be a 6-hour inventory. Now, let's talk about, Ann, from your perspective. I sell a house for a year ago. It sold for $400. Let's take this example to the extreme. I sell it for $500 a year later. $100,000 appreciation, 20% appreciation in 1 year. You're going to be looking at me going.
The bank's going to be looking at the appraiser going, okay, how are you going to support that?
Right. So the first thing that happens is my client that's excited that just bought this house, because there's not that many, and they have the money, and they want to live in, North Central Washington, Leavenworth, Chelan, doesn't matter, Omak, Brewster, Wenatchee, anywhere. So they're cool with it. They go to their bank, they're going to put their money down, and they go, okay. The bank goes, whoa, all right, well, we're going to call an appraisal in and double check, make sure that we're not going to get screwed over on this, because we also do, as bankers, remember the Great Recession. We do remember when things got a little bit out of control and everybody could borrow $1 million that had a pulse. That kind of skewed the numbers a little bit. And then one day, nobody made the payments, adjustable rate mortgages screwed everybody, and that's what led to the Great Recession, one of the things. So a bank will call you. Now, explain to the people what happens on your end when Russ is all beating his chest. Yay, Russ! I sold a house for $500,000 that sold for $400,000 last year. Because my job, my fiduciary obligation, is to make that seller the most amount of money I can. That's why they hired me, and do it in the best way possible. Your job is now to document.
Is to try and an appraisal is basically an opinion of value. My certification says that I am a neutral third party. I have no skin in the game. I'm to reflect the market in my appraisal. So in this scenario, it's going to be very challenging. First of all, I have to run statistics and see, has the market really appreciated that much? And so I'll look at, the past year versus the year before that. But I'm also going to break it down in the past 3 months, because when you have a real hot market, things can change. An appraisal is only good for 3 to 6 months.
Really?
Because market changes can happen very rapidly. And so a value I put 6 months ago may not be the same market we have now and may not be the same value. So in trying to find comparables that will support your $500,000 sale, I will be data mining the multiple listing service, but I will also be calling you and say, hey, how did you value this? Do you have any other sales or listings or pending sales that may not have shown up in my research that I can use? I just did one recently of a waterfront home. The realtor gave me 3 $2 million sales of waterfront homes that had just closed within the last month that had not been put into the MLS yet. Right. So I had no access to that information. And if I hadn't asked the realtor, where would I get it?
Right. And there are rules in our MLS that govern that. I mean, that's one of the things I'm constantly talking about with Northwest MLS and Flex both, but getting people to follow the rules. Yes. Right? Because the rules are in place that we need to put that data in. And it doesn't do any good for people to be out there bootlegging the system and hoarding that data. And
I don't think they were hoarding it. It was just so recent they hadn't gotten it in there.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some real legitimate. I mean, you have a certain reasonable amount of time to get it in. There's also certain things that happen off the books.
Right.
And that doesn't help anybody. I've always said, that that hurts you on the next deal because now, here we are in this example. Ann is going to have a hard time given, the value, even though maybe I could sell that home for $500,000 in our example over and over and over again because there's nothing like it. So it becomes this real challenging. I'm on the front edge as a real estate broker. You're an historian trying to find the data. We're trying to work together when sometimes you have to come in and say, okay, well, the value's less than you sold it. It's not that. I think it's important for people to understand. It's not that you're an evil person, right?
Right.
You're not the doom and gloom deal killer land.
No.
You have been given a very specific, very challenging task as an appraiser, correct?
Correct.
From the law.
Yes.
Could you explain what happened after 2008 and what things changed?
Yes, and I'll also explain, like I was telling you earlier, the difference between an appraiser and a realtor. The way it was taught to me is that we're all driving down the road in the same car, but the realtors are sitting in the front seat looking out the windshield at the future, at what they think a property will bring. The appraisers, we're in the back seat looking out the rear view window at what people actually paid for properties. So we're going to be a little bit behind where you are because we have to use closed sales. But in order to help mitigate some of that gap, we also use pending sales and current listings to help get that most recent market data. The most recent in time and the closest in proximity is what we're looking for to get the best sales to use in our appraisal reports.
Right. I can see we're in a metropolitan area. You have a subdivision. You got 700 McMansions in a row. It's pretty easy. Got sales. Yeah. In rural America, that's not always the case.
It's very difficult.
Yeah, so in rural America, here we go. We got a house and then you're dealing with secondary market people, meaning that those rules originate in Washington, D.C., and then they get translated down to these underwriters who work for the bankers, and they're scrutinizing everything you're doing to protect the bank.
And they've also legislated how we do it.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's totally changed the appraisal field.
Right, which is, we're coming up at the end of this second segment. In the next segment, we'll talk about, how exactly did that legislation limit the amount of appraisers? And that could be a good thing, but it can also be a very challenging thing. I appreciate it. Man, getting some good talk in about appraising, about selling. We're actually talking real estate today on a real estate show. I like it. Don't get used to it. All right, we'll be back in just a couple minutes. Thanks for tuning in.
Home sweet home. Thanks, Keller Williams. I love my dream home.